So now we study the law of diminishing marginal utility. Uh, so first introduction, there are 2 points which you need to remember. One is about the German economist called as Gassen, and therefore it is called as Gassen's law. And the German economist Gassen was the first to explain the law. Therefore this law is also known as Gassen's first law. And you also have a addition, Alfred Marshall, who Professor Alfred Mosher, who was a founder of neoclassical school, and he popularized it. Okay. After this, you have to remember. After this, you have to remember the 3 eyes. You can draw an eye and write 3. After this, you have to remember the 3 eyes. Okay. So what is that? That is, the law of diminishing marginal utility is one of the important laws, and it deals with the consumer behavior in an intensive manner, and it according according to the law, the consumer increases the consumption of uh, any commodity, keeping constant consumption of all the other commodity. The marginal utility of the commodity must eventually decline. So you can keep the the law of diminishing utility is a very important law, and then intensive. So you have to remember the 3 I's. After that comes the assumptions. After that, you have to remember the assumptions. So the keywords for assumptions are standard unit, identical, rational, constant, continuous, cardinal, and continuous, cardinal, and rational. Okay, these are the important points which you need to remember. So next, when we go to assumptions, we will go to the assumptions. We will see what it is. The units of consumption must be in standard units, that is a cup of tea, a bottle, or a cool drink. So you can make this a key figure which shows 2 standard units which are identical to which are identical to each other. Adanmele one bag which shows the 2 identical unit go to buy ration, and they get 3 cars, 3 C's. Okay, so this is the keyword. So ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕೀವರ್ಡ್ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದರೆ, the units of consumption must be standard units, for example cup of tea, bottle, etc. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸೆಕೆಂಡು, the units should be the consumer must be rational. The consumer has to be rational. ಆಮೇಲೆ the third 3 C's ಅಲ್ಲಿ, the units of consumption must be in cardinal numbers. ಆಮೇಲೆ the unit the price of the commodity and its substitute must remain a constant. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ points. Then we go to the next point, that utility can be measured in cardinal numbers like 1, 2, 3, etc. And then consumer should be an ordinary person. This is very important. The consumer should be an ordinary person. This law is not applicable for extraordinary persons. So you can take this keyword to 2 standard units, and it has to be a standard unit, identical, and it has to be rational. Utility can be measured in cardinal numbers, and the consumer should be an ordinary person, and one more C, the price of the commodity and its substitute has to remain constant. That is one important thing you need to make a note here. So this is the keyword. You can take a screenshot of this and key for your. Then this comes under assumptions. Okay, then after this you give a brief description. A law of diminishing marginal utility can be explained with the help of an example. Suppose in the month of, after this you After assumptions, you define the month of April. That is how you keep it as a clue. You define how it is in the month of April. So you define how a girl enters the room and she drinks water to quench the thirst, and she drinks the first bottle, first glass, and what happens at the second glass, what happens, and you stop it there. Then you go to the next para and explain what happens after the second glass. The law of diminishing marginal utility can be explained with the help of a example. Suppose in the month of April it is very hot. A student comes home from college and starts drinking water to quench her thirst. First glass of water has a great utility for her. When he drinks the second glass of water, the extent of thirst would have reduced. Now you have described the first class and the second class, then you go to the second. What happens after that? Therefore, she'll derive less utility from the second class, and if she takes the third class, then the utility will be lesser than that of the second class. In this way, the additional utility of every extra class she takes goes on decreasing. If the girls continues to take more glasses of water, the marginal utility falls down. So after assumption, you explain what happens in the month of April. After that comes a table. Then you have to show what happens in the table. As shown in the table, the consumer derives 12 units of utility from the first glass of water. Okay, from first glass of water. When the water is drank continuously, the marginal utility falls down. So here you described more about the marginal utility and what happens when water is drank continuously. The marginal utility goes on decreasing. The first glass it is 12, and second glass it is 8, and the third glass 8. Therefore the difference you explain. And after the fourth or fifth glass it becomes 0. The fifth glass of water, the marginal utility becomes negative for the sixth glass. Thus when the consumer consumes any particular commodity continuously, the marginal utility decreases. So just before the table, you first explain the marginal utility. Then you draw the table. In the table, how you can do, you can just name the number of classes and write the marginal utility. The marginal utility can be 12 first, 8 first, 6, 4, 0 and minus 2. Then you can do 12. 12 plus 8 is 20. 20 plus 6 is 26. 26 plus 4 is 30. 30 plus 0 is 30. 30 minus 2 is 28. So this helps you to get a correct chart. The total utility goes on increasing at a decreasing rate, and after a stage begins to decline. When the mu declines, when the marginal utility declines, as long as it is greater than 0, the total utility increases. For the first 4 glasses of water, the total utility increases from 12 units to 30 units. So after the chart, you explain about the total utility and reaches maximum, and the marginal utility becomes negative. The TU declines to 30, from 30 units to 28 units. After this, you draw a diagram, you draw a O-axis and Y-axis, wherein you show the total utility and the marginal utility, wherein and show the plotting there, and wherein the total utility curve goes from left to right of the axis, and then it starts declining after it reaches 30. The marginal utility moves downward of the OX axis, and it starts going negative after it reaches 5. You can explain this with the help of a diagram wherein the quantity of water is measured on OX axis and the utility is measured in OY axis. Uh, TU is the total utility curve. The curve rises upward. So you can explain all that. The curve rises upward from the right to left in the beginning, and then in a rising rate, and afterwards it slopes downward, which slopes from left to right. After this, we have the limitations. The limitations can be as follows. The law is not applicable for rare collections such as ancient coins, stamps, antiques, etc. The law is the law is not fully applicable to money. The marginal utility of money declines with the richness and never reaches 0. It does not apply to knowledge, art, or innovations. The law is not applicable to precious things like diamond, gold, etc. The law is not does not operate if the consumer behaves in an irrational manner. Man is fond of beauty and gets more satisfaction. If a dress is in fashion, its utility goes down. On the other hand, the utility goes up when the dress is out of fashion. The utility increases due to demonstrative effect. For example, a person tries to irritate his or her well-off neighbor. It's called as demonstrative effects. These are the points of limitations, yeah, which is denoted by a diagram. A girl by name Rare. Okay, she has stress and she's irrational, money, beauty, diamond, knowledge. So this is the keyword wherein you can remember that. This is a reminder. After that, you have after the limitations, you have the importance. The keep you can keep the keyword. The principle utilizes base to determine the prices. Okay, after the importance, so the principle for principle you can say for principle you can write the point. In the field of public finance, this law is used to determine the this law is used for practical has a practical application for the principle of taxation. And then next, the principle, by purchasing more units the commodity, the marginal utility decreases. Due to this behavior, the consumer cuts his expenses. And this helps to utilize the resources economically. So you can use the term economy here. So next, for base, this law plays as is a base for many other laws, such as law of demand, elasticity, demand, consumer surplus, etc. This is for the base. Next, the theory value is based on this law. The value of commodity falls out with increasing supply of the commodity. This forms the basis for determining the prices. So you can for determining prices, this is the keyword. This theory of value is based on this law. The theory of value is based on this law. The value of commodity falls with an increased supply, so it is used for determining the prices. After all this, you mentioned the Adam Smith diamond water paradox, wherein you explain about the diamond, where that is it is relatively scarce, therefore it possesses high marginal value, and so high, since water is relatively abundant, it possesses a low marginal value and hence low price, even though its total utility is high. This is why water has a low price when compared to diamond, though water is more useful than diamond. You explain this and close. That's the end of law of diminishing marginal utility.